Well, first question is, it's the Olympic athletes of Russia that have a small lead as far as odds here. They're priced at 3 at Bovada. Canada comes in second, priced 4. Is Canada's team depleted from sort of obviously 2010 and 2014, and why is that?
Well, the big story
Massively,
coming
yeah.
into the men's Olympic hockey here in this tournament is the fact that there's no NHL player participation in these Olympics on the men's side. Gary Bettman, the commissioner of the NHL, did not come to a deal with the IIHF and with the IOC, the International Ice Hockey Federation, the International Olympic Committee, to send NHL players to these Winter Olympics to represent men's hockey. So as a result, Canada and the United States, for instance, are two of the nations most affected by this, probably in a negative light. You're looking at a situation now where these two countries, they've got to pull the American Hockey League, which is basically like the farm league system, to the NHL. They've got to pull players from maybe some of the players from the junior ranks, some Canadian and American citizen players that are currently playing in European leagues like the KHL, like the Swedish Elite League, like the Swiss League, like the German League. You go on down the list, there's a bunch of Canadian and American born players playing overseas right now. So as a result, there's going to be a lot of videotape going through, a lot of due diligence being put forth by the management teams of these two countries, trying to find out and put together a roster not comprised of NHL players. It's a difficult task. You got to try to find the best of the bunch out there. And as a result, it's put a unique twist, Natalie and company, on this Olympic hockey tournament. Is this going to be on the men's side? Is it going to be a true indication of who the best hockey nation is in the world? Without NHL player participation, you could argue it won't be.
Yeah, yeah. I think also it also could provide a sort of a platform sort of for names that we haven't really heard to really shine through. Do you think that could be the case?
It very well could. Think about this. I mean, what if the basketball tournament in the summer did not have NBA participation? So that's basically what you're comparing this to here. No LeBron James, Kevin Durant. No Summer Olympics for you. You're going to get some D League player representing your country. I mean, and that's the frustration now. Their interest and excitement and enthusiasm in Canada even has waned a little bit for the men's hockey tournament, because they're looking at their roster and saying, here's Ben Scrivens, Justin Peters, and Kevin Poulin are 3 goalies, 3 guys who aren't even in the NHL anymore. Wojtek Wolski's on the Canadian roster. I didn't even know that guy was playing hockey. I thought, wow, he fell off a turnip truck. He's back playing hockey again. Like, I hadn't heard about the guy or seen him play hockey in years, and here he is representing Canada at the men's hockey tournament. So it's just those little things that people have got to get used to, and it's sort of been a little bit of a negative, I feel, that there's no NHL participation. It's disappointing, but there's still going to be people waving the Canadian pom-poms, waving the flag, and still getting behind this team despite it.
Nice. Well, USA, they're sort of a longer favorite, so to speak, priced at 10. And again, it's been a bit of a headache there for Tony Granato without the NHL players. What have you heard as a result of that, big man?
Well, I think that, Natalie, goes back to your original question on why the interest might also be down. You have elite leagues not allowing participation. I mean, the NHL is everything to the U.S. national team. I mean, you have some names. I mean, Brian Junta, who I'm sure Ian remembers from the Devils, and Chris Bork, who has played in the league. You have certain guys, but yeah, if you're the coach, I mean, it's got to be brutal. I mean, you're literally, Natalie, think of this. It's similar to, you know, no Premier League players when there's an FA Cup or something. I mean, it would kind of be brutal. I mean, you're just dealing with lower level. It's like watching when we do European qualifying in the World Cup. We're dealing with just crap teams, Gibraltar, Faroe Islands. I mean, it's very similar to that. I mean, you're dealing with people that aren't good representation of the teams, and Ian kind of detailed that. It's a shame. I don't know why they couldn't strike a deal. It's a shame they can't, and now we as a country, because I think that's the general thing in the U.S. The big sport people want to watch is hockey. They want to watch their 1980 Miracle team and those kind of teams. You don't have that now, and I think it's taken away considerably to the interest in this country because it's not being represented. You have guys from the Hershey Bears and the randomness of AHL hockey. It's a bad product, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, Canada obviously won both 2010 and 2014. Their price, as I said, a slightly longer priced 4. Do you know the team selection yet, Ian? And would you bet on it based that now there's sort of very little sort of like stats to sort of go on with this sort of new Canadian hockey team?
It is very, very. It's what this whole thing has done with no NHL involvement is it's leveled the playing field. It really has, and it's given the European nations even more of a edge. I mean, you look at the Olympic athletes of Russia as the favorites right now in the futures in terms of the men's Olympic hockey, and I don't understand that. Can we not just call them Russia? I know there's the boycott scenario and all that, but we still know it's Russia. Do we need to throw OAR in there? But can't do anything about that. It's a situation where Russia's got an edge. They're going to have a lot of KHL players. That Russians dominate the KHL. They're going to be able to handpick, their best players from that league. The Russian roster, oddly enough, is the one roster, guys, that hasn't been announced yet. That'll come later this week, but they'll have a very good roster, a very talented roster. Their issue, and why I don't think there's great betting value on them in the futures bet here, Natalie, is the fact that we're dealing with a Russia team that has had the old noose around their neck here at these Olympics in years past. They've not gotten the job done. It's been a gag fest. It's been, coughing up a lung in these big-time international hockey tournaments in recent years for Russia. Pressure's gotten to them. Haven't performed in the big spot to the level that certainly the Russians anticipate. This is supposed to be one of the premier hockey nations in the world, and they just haven't consistently performed and delivered the big game in the big moment. And that's going to be the concern moving forward. On paper, when their roster comes out, I'm sure I'm going to be looking at it and saying, wow, this team's probably as good, if not better, than everybody else that's sending a hockey team into this tournament. But mentally, is it going to be able to match what they're able to do physically on the ice? That's been their problem and their bugaboo in years past.
Yeah, you make a very good point there, Ian. What are your thoughts there, Martin? Should the Olympic athletes of Russia be favourites? Would they get your money at this point? They're priced 3, Bovada.
Perhaps. I think they have choked in previous years. They crashed out in the quarterfinals against Finland last time, so you have to set alarm bells ringing there. But yeah, they probably will be the strongest team on paper when they do announce their roster. They're going to have Markov, they're going to have Kovalchuk. They're going to have a good team. But I'm unconvinced, and especially at the shortest price going, I wouldn't think there's a great deal of value there. I think Sweden looks quite interesting. Silver medalists last time, get plus 400 on them. Swedish league looks pretty strong. Also, these European teams are going to lose out some of their best players as well because they're in the NHL. But I think there's interesting value on the likes of Canada and the USA as well. They seem to be really reveling in their underdog status. I know it's been a bit of a brutal process for the head coaches to try and pick rosters for the two teams, but I think it's been quite fun as well, trawling through the AHL, looking at former sort of washed up pros, getting players that have passed their best and they're plying their trade in Kazakhstan and Switzerland and stuff. And yeah, it's gonna make it a lot more interesting than just Canadian dominance. So while it's probably the popularity is going to wane in its heartland, might make it more interesting in Europe, and we could see some close, interesting games. But yeah, I still do think there's good value on the USA as underdogs and even Canada.
Yeah.
Sweden is a good one.
I just want to. It does seem very shaky, this betting market, ice hockey men, with this sort of new rule imposed. Which teams do you think could triumph?
I think Sweden, Ian will comment on. I think he'll make that case in a moment here. Sweden looks pretty good at 4-1. I mean, Ian, remember some of these names, Ian? I mean, some of these guys. I mean, Bergstrom, Lundqvist, Eric Gustafsson. I know he was with the Flyers for many years. There's some interesting names here, and you got guys that are really towards the end of their career. I mean, you got to wonder, are they? I mean, you got 35-year-olds on this Swedish team, a couple different 35-year-olds. I'd like to hear Ian's opinion on Sweden. I think they might be a bit of maybe a dark horse.
Yeah, I'm interested in teams, big man, with NHL experience, and there is some on this Sweden team. I know it's actually the poor man's Lundqvist that's on this Sweden team, Joel Lundqvist. That's not the Lundqvist everybody thinks of. Is Henrik, the goalie, of course, for the New York Rangers. But Joel Lundqvist is a guy that's experienced.
They'd be favorites probably.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But what I like about Sweden is they've got some players that do have some NHL experience that actually performed and produced at the NHL level for an extended period of time. I'm looking at Victor Stahlberg, a guy that was played with the Leafs, played with the Blackhawks, played with the Rangers over here in the NHL for many, many years. You look at, Joel Lundqvist had a brief stint. Stefan Kronwall on the blue line for Sweden is a guy that had extensive NHL experience, and I like their goaltending. Jonas Enroth and Victor Foster, two guys that have extensive NHL starting experience. They've played many games in the National Hockey League in between the pipes, both Enroth and Fost. That could give Sweden a little bit of a puncher's chance, and the price is not bad at all.
Yeah, totally agree on that one. So right now, as it stands, Ian, do you have any money on the outright? Are you going to go and take it as a game by game basis?
In terms of the outright, Sweden has some value. I'll be looking at Sweden as an outright. Canada and the States, I'm just not sure how they're going to react with this new roster. I know Canada still has a lot of players that are playing again overseas. When you look at it, they've got guys that have been brief stays in the NHL. Cody Golubev, Marc-Andre Grignani have been played in the NHL. Rene Bourque's played in the NHL. Gilbert Brulé's played in the NHL. So Chris Kelly's been in the NHL for a while, but it's still overall, it's just not even close to the level of talent Canada's used to sending. Sweden, to me, from a futures perspective, does make sense. When I look at it, it's a decent price on the men's side for Sweden at about plus 332 at Pinnacle right now. Finland's not a bad option, plus 681. A real dark horse, real sleeper, if you want to go really crazy a little bit, Slovakia at 76 to 1. I actually kind of like what that Slovak team is doing. They've got Craig Ramsey as the team's head coach, a guy that's coached in the NHL as an assistant for years and years and years. He knows the NHL inside and out. It's a young team. They've got talent, and I think they're trying to play a up-tempo, fast style of hockey. So from a totals perspective, look to bet some of these Slovakia games over the total. When this tournament starts, they want to play up tempo, they want to play fast, they want to use their speed on all four lines. Something you want to keep in mind when these games start in a few weeks.
All right, nice. At Team Bankroll, we do like to be a little bit crazy, I have to say, Ian. So Slovakia 67, maybe Stuart from Tips HQ may also like that one as well. He likes to get a bit crazy. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now, we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.